What's up, y'all? This is your man, Louis L. Reed, here with a very, very special National Second Chance Reentry Month edition of the Douglas Project. I'm here with my brothers. I am super ecstatic to have a conversation today. Let me get right into it and immediately introduce my brother to my immediate left, my man, my mellow. He doesn't like to be called the good doctor. But I will introduce him as Dr. Marc Howard, who is the founder of the Frederick Douglass Project for Justice. What's up, Marc?
Great to be here, Louis.
Hi. Marc is a man of many words. to Marc's left, who do we have?
We have JJ Velazquez.
Yeah. And who was JJ? Like, what do you do? You're just not JJ. What do you do?
Well, if you don't know by now, it's a problem. But seriously, I spent almost 24 years incarcerated for a crime I didn't commit. And during that time, I used that time and invested in the people that I was incarcerated with. And we were able to do miraculous things, including some of us earning 1, 2, some even 3 degrees in prison. And beyond that, we created our own programs, and then I was released on executive clemency based on the work that I was doing in there and on the fact that I was innocent. And since I've been home, I've been fortunate enough to be working as the program director here at the Douglas Project.
That's what's up. And also, we got my brother.
David Schultz, and I'm a returning citizen. Upon release, I graduated from the Georgetown Pivot Program, and I am the current D.C. jail visit facilitator for the Frederick Douglass Project.
That's what's up. So I want to jump right into it, Marc. Marc, you are the founder and president of the Frederick Douglass Project. Talk to us a little bit about what the vision was. Like, what was your moment of clarity where you said, I want to whiteboard this concept to have this program that's going to not just produce impact for people who are justice involved, but also produce outcomes as well. Right. What was that like?
Right. Well, first, to answer that question, I got to go back to the origin story, which is my childhood friend Marty Tankleff being wrongfully convicted of killing his parents, being sentenced to 50 years to life, and my reconnection with him and visiting him in prison. It turned things for me in so many ways. One is that I decided to rededicate my life to getting him out of prison, getting him exonerated, which was successful. And then we started a program where we've helped 7 other people who were innocent of the crimes they were convicted of to walk out of prison. We've walked 7 other people out of prison together.
And you're a Georgetown law professor as well.
And I've been a professor at Georgetown for a long time.
Got it.
Run a program called the Georgetown Prisons and Justice Initiative. Now, another thing happened in that prison visiting room when I was visiting Marty. It wasn't just about him, is that I was looking around the room and I was seeing all kinds of people with their families, their loved ones, and I felt their sadness, their pain, their joy at being together. And it hit me that every single person there has a dignity, has a life, has a family, has a spirit that we should care about. And so after that time and over the coming years at Georgetown, I started to build these programs. I built the Prisons and Justice Initiative. We have education programs in prison at the DC jail, credit-bearing classes. In a maximum security prison in Maryland, we have a bachelor's degree program, a Georgetown bachelor's degree program in prison.
In prison.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have 2 reentry programs. David was in the Pivot program, which now is in its 6th cohort. The paralegal program is now about to start its 5th cohort. That's for formerly incarcerated people who study with us at Georgetown, get paid for that time, and then get employment. We've had over 100 graduates of these programs.
Wow.
Only 1 is back in prison on
Out of a
violation,
out of
on a
one-
technical violation.
Out of a technical
out of
violation.
over 100.
Wow. That's
So as I was doing that work, I felt that it was magical what we were doing here at Georgetown in Washington, D.C. But there was something that I wanted to scale, which is that, we have 2 million people in this country. There's 6,000 prisons all across the country. So we're doing a lot in one area.
Yeah.
But there was a particular formula that I'd seen develop kind of almost by accident, which is that I started bringing people inside all the time, students, thousands of students.
And when you say inside, you're talking about inside
Prisons.
institutions. Yeah.
Prisons and jails.
Yep.
And every time it was this magical experience where they'd walk away saying that was life-changing. That was just so eye-opening. That was so inspiring. I met these incredible people that I never even thought about before. So I wanted to scale that. Now, I was able to do that, and sometimes with high-profile visitors. I brought in Kim Kardashian to the D.C. jail. She shared it with her 500 million followers. It was a really powerful experience, had it in her documentary. but I also wanted to just bring more people in. And then I decided to create a national organization, called it the Frederick Douglass Project for Justice, named to honor a historical hero of mine, for many others across this country, somebody who fought for freedom, for equality, for justice, who was an entrepreneur, and then decided to scale what I've been doing locally on a national level, which is to bring people into prisons and jails to realize that incarcerated people are just like all of us. They've made some mistakes. They've been down. They're paying a really steep price for those mistakes. Prison conditions are just so dehumanizing. And we're trying to bring some light, some humanity, some connection, so that when people come home, they're going to be more engaged with outside society.
They're going to be better than how they were before.
That's right.
So,
and that also society will be better than what it was before, because we learn from incarcerated people. We're inspired by, I am every single time, and I'm in prisons and jails almost every week.
Yeah, last I checked, I heard that you had a jail and prison credibility card. Yeah, I did 14 years, and I heard that yours is more valid than mine. More valid than mine.
I also have the highest recidivism rate ever.
Yeah,
I go back in like every day.
Yes, it's a weird thing. So when I think about what it is that you just said, you had a friend who you walked into an institution with, not just to move in his situation, but you're moved by the situation. You're looking at the people who are on the periphery, and you're looking at mothers, aunties, cousins, brothers, etc. And you're seeing those people in those visiting rooms. I want to pivot real quick to JJ, because you were one of the people who Marc connected with. In what prison was that, and how did that connection happen?
Yeah, so it was quite amazing. I actually met Marc, who happened to be my employer while I was incarcerated, right? And so I think that's the beauty and the magic of what the Douglass Project does. Marc came in with a few board members. Halim Flowers, that was formerly incarcerated, was one of the people that he was helping when he was incarcerated. He had also brought Mike Ryan, who's on our board, and he brought us another student that happened to be a personal friend of mine, George, that was working with him at the time, but that had also been working with me inside to do some of the reform in the legislation that we were pushing while we were incarcerated.
Wait, hold up, time out. So you were incarcerated and advocating from the inside.
Yes.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so because of the advocacy and the work that we were doing and the recognition we got for it, when Marc had reached out to the superintendent at Sing Sing, Michael Capra, to come into the facility, Michael Capra came down to the block, came to see me, and was like, listen, get your team together. You're going to meet with a professor from Georgetown, and we're going to discuss possibly a project that we might be bringing into the prison where we could get some guys off the fence that are in the yard that are looking for change but need the opportunity and the direction. And so I was like, great, this sounds like this is something right up my alley. I'm excited to meet him. I'll grab up, how many guys do you need?
And how long were you in at that time?
At that time, it was right before COVID, so we're talking about, if I'm correct, Marc, I think it was 2019?
It was January, February 2020.
2020, so
Early
yeah,
2020.
so it was January, it was right before COVID came, and so I think we got about 10 or 11 of our guys in there. It was about 4 more came in. Dan Slepian from NBC Dateline also was present, and we sat down and we heard what Marc's vision was. And so Marc was like, I want to bring students and celebrities and corporate people and just anybody from the community to start coming in here to see you guys and to connect with you guys on a real human level, and to start talking about things outside of the circumference of incarceration, but also to educate people about incarceration. And so we were super excited, but then COVID came and the doors closed. We couldn't even see our loved ones. We couldn't see our brothers, our sisters, our mothers. Right, and all we had was us.
Yeah. And what is it like to be incarcerated and to talk about that statement? All we had was us. What is it like to only have the people that you are incarcerated with during a global pandemic?
Now that is a little crazy, right? You stay tuned to the TV and you hear all the horrific stories about people dying, and it's because people are in close proximity. And then you think, I'm in a prison that has 1,800 cells, and these cells are right next to each other, and we share a vent. So if you cough 5 cells away, it's eventually going to come into my cell, right? And then so, like the density of the prison, and how we were, and then the fact that we're not seeing anybody from outside anymore.
Yeah.
The doors were closed.
That
no
part.
programs.
Yeah.
No visits. No nothing. The only people you're seeing are the officers. There was actually a time that I was so scared that I had taken garbage bags and taped them up on my cell so that when officers came by, they weren't breathing in my cell. And they had the audacity to tell me take it down. I told them, you can write me up, send me to the box, do whatever you want to do. I'm not taking it down.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not letting me get a mask.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And it's interesting because I know that the pandemic seemed to be 15 pandemics ago and in 3 lifetimes ago, and people forget those statistics. But 7 out of 10 hotspots in the United States of America were in jails and prisons. And so, what was how desperate were you for external human connection with family, friends, etc., while you, especially during that particular point in time? And also talk to us about how the Douglas Project is pivotal to having that human connection.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, besides fear, the only other thing that a lot of guys had left was hope that we can survive, and a yearning for love and attention, right? And so those things were missing in our lives throughout the entirety of COVID, pretty much. And my salvation actually came through the governor of New York at the time, Andrew Cuomo, who gave me clemency during COVID and released me.
Oh, wow.
You know, but something as tragic as COVID really shows the need for something like the Douglas Project, because, you know, there are people in prison who have loved ones and supporters, and there are people who don't. And so I was fortunate enough to be the one that had. And I couldn't appreciate not having until it was taken from all of us. And so it was during COVID that I realized what it is to do time and not have somebody come check on you, to do time and not be able to embrace somebody that you love and you care for, you know? And so that made me realize the depth. I knew, I was conscious that a lot of people don't go on visits, but I didn't experience what they experienced until COVID. And so for people to understand the power of the Douglas Project, there are hundreds of thousands of people who probably don't have anybody that they can rely on, somebody to hug that wasn't either incarcerated. And that's it. You can't hug nobody that's not incarcerated. You're not hugging an officer. Right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's so important. People don't understand just human touch, sometimes what that could be.
And sometimes that human touch is not physically. Sometimes that human touch is through a conversation.
Yes.
So when and David, I see you nodding your head, and I want to talk to you about the power of that connection as well, and bring you into the conversation. But when we think about human connectivity, it sometimes goes beyond the physical. Sometimes it's the intellectual. Sometimes it's the emotional. Sometimes it's the spiritual.
Absolutely.
And when I think about what we do at the Douglas Projects, it's actually a convergence of all 4. It's the spiritual, it's the emotional, it's the mental, it's the physical, right? It's bringing people together. What was the power of that connection for you, David?
So I'll say that, you know, I'm blessed to be able to go in every single week and kind of see the magic happen.
Wait 1 second. Let's make sure that we're understanding you correctly. You have been justice impacted, you've been incarcerated, and now you're going back into institutions through the work that you're doing at the Douglas Project.
Yes.
What's that like for you?
So, you know, it's, first of all, it's a true blessing that I'm able to walk in and also walk right back out of an
Amen. Pass the offering.
Right. Of an institution that, in an institution that I was housed at, you know, numerous times. And so just to, like I said, walk in and out is a blessing within itself. But to go back and give back and to see kind of, you know, us as individuals that have been incarcerated, we're kind of closed off, especially we're on the inside. And
what is it like to be closed off while you're on the inside?
Because you kind of have to put a wall around yourself just to protect yourself. You kind of have to shut out a lot of the outside noise and kind of just stay to yourself. And so to be able to see those walls come down each week, when these individuals get into like the smaller groups and have these kind of more intimate conversations with the outside participants, and then to also see the outside participants kind of anxious or I wouldn't say worried, but not fearful, but just, a lot of questions in their mind about what's this gonna be like, and to see those walls come down within that 2-hour period is something amazing.
Let's Mark, I want to ask you what is the program structure like, because David just talked about a 2-hour period, you have these subgroups, etc. Make the implicit explicit. What can I expect if I am going to walk into an institution or I'm going to participate virtually? Because that's one of the great things that actually came out as a result of COVID. What does that look like?
Yeah, so first I should say we're operating in 9 states. We're about to have our 10th state, Texas, come on soon. We are in about 15 facilities, because sometimes we have multiple facilities, men's and women's. We try to make sure we're always including our incarcerated sisters in this program as well.
I love the way that you frame that. You said our sisters, not these sisters, our sisters.
No, they're our
because
brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And so every program varies a little bit based on the prison, based on the layout, based on what the facility is able to do, based on their staffings. But basically, there's some type of walking through the prison, some type of visit, some type of seeing where incarcerated people live. We think that's really important. But sometimes that might be 5 minutes, sometimes it might be an hour. So that varies a little bit based on the place. But then the core that never changes is that we have a roughly 2-hour experience where the outside visitors come in, sit mixed together with the inside participants. And notice we don't use words like inmate, felon, convict, all that stuff. It's inside participants, outside participants. And then they sit together, and then we do about 30 minutes of introductions and warm up and sort of icebreaker
break the ice
conversations that everyone speaks. We go around in a circle. And then we break into small groups where people are roughly like 6 or so, and they're evenly matched inside and outside participants. And then they have conversation topics that we give them to guide the conversation, but it can go in any direction. It's
What's an example of a conversation topic?
It might be like, so how do you define family? Or who were the mentors in your life that you looked up to? Or what's the best piece of advice you ever received? Those are some examples that you can talk for an hour about. One person, right? So
and
great conversations flow.
And when you frame it the way that you just did, I envision, in effect, that might be something that a professor could be talking with a student about. That's something that you might be talking with your friend at Starbucks about, right? It's one of those points of socialization that you can use to bring people together. Go ahead.
Exactly. No, and that's what we tell people. And what happens is people say they don't feel like they're in a prison anymore. They feel like they're in a restaurant. They feel like they're out somewhere talking to great people that they just met and getting to know them and connecting. And honestly, we get from our outside participants too saying that was the best conversation I've ever had, or in like 10 years. Because we don't have these conversations on the outside. If you think about it, we're all living in our little mental prisons where everyone's kind of closed off. Everyone sort of has to sort of show, or
everybody's on their phone all the time.
Exactly, on their phone. They're isolated, or they're trying to impress people. And here it's just like, who are you as a human being? And we're all human. We're all the same. And that's the message that comes across. And it's really beautiful. It's magical. And it happens every single fucking time. Excuse me if I'm...
No, say that one more time for the people in the back.
Every single fucking time. It's unbelievable how magical it is. It is a formula that doesn't fail. That you bring people together, you give them an opportunity to talk and connect, and then it's just beautiful what ensues. And no one wants to stop. And we joke about this every time. The small groups happen. It lasts for like 45 minutes to an hour. And then we're like, it's time to now come back together in a full circle for closing reflections. And people are like, no, you just can't get them to stop. And you finally got to like be like police.
I've actually learned to give the warning ahead of time.
It's
going to be a time. I'm going to tell you have 5 minutes left. I need you to cooperate with me. I know. You're not looking at it like that now, but I'm telling you, when we get in these circles, you're not going to want to listen to me. And I need you to cooperate so that I can keep bringing
If not, we have security here that can escort the outside participants out.
You might become an inside participant if you don't want to leave.
Exactly. But then the last thing is we have everyone back in a circle together for reflections. We think it's really important for people to let it sink in and to share a little bit. And that's where you hear some really powerful, moving, stories that people share, You know, a lot of people have struggled with the loss of a loved one. You know, that doesn't change whether you're inside or outside.
Yeah.
Or struggling with, you know, a child and, you know, all kinds of the challenges of parenting.
Being a parent,
So many things that come across. And we let people, that one we don't go around in a circle. We let people come forward. Some people are maybe shy, reserved, don't want to share. Others do. And it's just beautiful. You see this incredible love and appreciation that is just, again, magical.
You know, one of the things that I love at the closeout is asking everyone, what's one thing that you have in common with someone? And just to listen, and you hear a reflection of people in other people, it is something that you should expect, but you just do not expect as a result of that experience. I see you smiling, David. Yeah,
because I was going to say, one of the other amazing things, too, is that not only do the outside participants learn about the inside participants, but, you know, every single time the inside participants learn about each other, even though they're housed together and live together, every single time you'll hear one of them say, oh, I had something in common with, and then they'll say, oh, hey, I didn't know you like this or that. And so I think that, to me, is part of the magic, you know, and it's another great part is just being there and hearing all the laughter. I don't hear the laughter, but with the aesthetics of where you're at, like on the unit, and to hear just the joy and the people having enjoyment, it's just amazing.
I think you bring up a good point, David. I think that the other point that we haven't shared yet is that in prison, majority of the people that are incarcerated run around the prison with a mask on, right? And so they're not going to talk about the things that make them feel vulnerable to the population,
right?
Because that can be a weak point that somebody can use against me, right? So when they come down to the Douglas Project and they start revealing things about their lives, their families, they start getting in touch with things that they're already forgetting about their own life and humanity.
Yeah, that part.
And so being able to take that mask off and be real for those 2 hours is something that really changes it. And you're right. That's what gives the inside participants an opportunity to see each other with the human face rather than the mask I see you in the yard with.
Right, absolutely.
And so I think that that's powerful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
April is National Second Chance Month, and specifically April 23rd is National Reentry Week. Marc, what does redemption or second chance mean to you?
I mean, it's what I live for, because every single time I go inside a prison or jail, which is, you know, once or twice a week, I look at people who are wearing, you know, orange in D.C. or green in New York or, you know, blue in California.
You got all the colors.
All the colors.
You're color coded by state. He remembers all of it.
I mean, it's, you know, maroon in Pennsylvania. I mean, just, so every time I go, I don't see those colors. Obviously, I notice them, but I see people who are going to be coming home to our society, to their families first and foremost, because their families are doing the time with them. Let's not forget, and all three of you know what that's like and how many other people suffer from someone's incarceration. And they're going to be coming home, and I want them to succeed. And they're only going to succeed if the society is ready to welcome them, to give them an opportunity, to give them a second chance. That's why I think Second Chance Month and week is so important, because we have a lot of talk in this country about second chances, rooting for the underdog, the comeback kid, all that bullshit. But in reality, we don't do much of it. We need to do a hell of a lot more. We need to live up to those ideals.
What does more look like for you?
More looks like no discrimination against people in housing, in employment. When you've done your time, and I've studied this in other countries too, when you're done, your sentence, that was your temporary separation from society was your punishment. In this country, you're punished in prison over and over. The conditions are horrific, et cetera. You get worse, not better in many cases. But when you come home, it's a new start. But here we make people walk around with the letter F on their chest, and it comes up in the first, you know, job application, background check,
It's life insurance applications,
every single thing. And so we need to break down those barriers. We need to change laws. We need to allow people to genuinely successfully re-enter society, because when they fail, it's not that they fail in most cases, it's that we fail.
And
And that needs to change. And I think humanity, seeing them as human beings, seeing them as our brothers and sisters, as just like us. That's the way to do that. Because if somebody has a brother or sister who's gone to prison, they're going to welcome them when they come home. They're going to be there. They're going to support them. But why are they not doing it for other people? I think every single of the 2 million incarcerated people is my brother or sister, and deserves that chance when they come home. And that's what we're trying to do as an organization.
And just talking about 2 million people who are currently incarcerated, you got about 6.5 million people who are currently under supervision of some kind, and you also have 70 million people in this country with criminal histories.
That's right.
Think about that. You got 2 million people who are incarcerated, approximately. You got approximately 6 million people who are currently under supervision, probation or parole, and you got more than 70 million people with a criminal history of some kind in the United States of America. This is our country. David, what does second chance and redemption mean or look like for you?
It means, first of all, taking accountability, kind of working on oneself, looking for forgiveness from not only others but also yourself, and just.
And what does looking for forgiveness from yourself look like?
Forgiving any maybe mistakes that you had made, personally. Just pretty much just working on yourself to become a better person, to be able to give back to society, to kind of make the wrongs that you have done in your life kind of right. So that's what it looks like for me.
And David's doing that, let me tell you.
Yeah, how so?
Well, I saw him entering the Pivot program, which was a year-long program, business and entrepreneurship.
Wait, so you have a business and entrepreneurship program
for
inside
returning citizens? No, after he's home.
After he's home.
This
Got
is
it.
through Georgetown.
Got it.
And I saw David, tentative, unsure of himself, struggling, as most people are when they come home from prison. With a lot of self-doubt. And I saw him grow and gain self-assurance, gain knowledge, gain connections, gain network, gain a community, a family through this larger Georgetown family that believed in him, and I saw his self-belief grow with that. And now he's reached a point where, I would trust David with anything. I believe in him, and he knows it.
And I would say to that, prior to my incarceration, I had worked healthcare kind of administration and things like that. But after my incarceration, I was not even allowed to get a job at a major corporate kind of box store stocking shelves at night. So it was a big blow to my gut, coming out and then having to do a complete career shift. So that kind of unsureness came from what am I going to do now? Because I'm not able to kind of get back into my normal job field because of my criminal background. And you're absolutely right. Just putting me in that network, the Georgetown network, and through the programs has just helped me to accelerate. And I never imagined where I'm at now, being a director of Reentry services for a major nonprofit and also on the board of the ACLU-DC. It's just amazing.
Say that one more time for the people in the back, man. 'Cause that just made my heart dance. I'm good for you, Strong J, my brother. Good for you.
Thank you.
JJ, we talked about what redemption looks like for you.
Right.
This is National Second Chance Month. If there's one message that you could project to the world about folks who are formerly incarcerated and or people who've never seen the inside of an institution, but they are institutionalized in society due to having a criminal conviction, what would that message be?
It's a great question, and I would say this. If there was one thing to realize out of everything that's been said, particularly coming from the perspective of the Douglas Project, I would say that people need to realize that whether you're incarcerated or whether you're free, we're all human. And the only thing that differentiates that humanity is perception, right? And that perception needs to change. Individuals are incarcerated not because they're bad people, but rather because they made bad choices. And you can make good choices as well. And so if we work with these individuals, we got this word called rehabilitation that's supposed to define what incarceration means in America. And it's just not true. There are no rehabilitative services in prison. And you can't change someone unless they want to change. So people are not going to want to change unless they think that you believe in them. And so the minute that we start believing in people, we give them permission to change. Then we have to flood them with opportunity. And the minute we give them that, that's when we become a safer society.
Yeah. You know, I was speaking not too long ago about how when I was released after 14 years of incarceration, I had to keep my foot on the accelerator. Go, 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 go. And in that going, I think that I've been relatively successful. I've been able to contribute to the passing of more than 30 bills across the country, been able to work with some very prominent people in my career, but I've also took some losses as well. I lost my father in 2021. He was a victim of opportunity. I lost a very good friend of mine who got released under a federal bill that we were able to get passed after serving 20 years. Taken, 4 or 5 other losses, major life losses in between time. And finally, in 2022-ish, I believe, I can't remember what year we're in, I checked myself into therapy. I went into therapy, Mark. I went out to Florida to a mental health facility that focused specifically on grief and bereavement. And I also lost my sister 1 year to the day that my father was murdered. Wow. She passed away from asthma exacerbated by COVID. And Mark, while I was there, I realized that I wasn't just grieving the loss of my loved ones. I was also grieving the loss of my freedom that I had never fully processed. And society says, go, 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 go. And we're going, but we're not taking care of ourselves in the meantime. And so, Mark, you are a chronic recidivist. You go in and out of prisons. What are you doing, even though you're not incarcerated? What are you doing to take care of yourself? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what I do is trying to connect with others and help others, and there's something very therapeutic in that. So every single time I go inside, I've got men and women saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I go, no, thank you. So what I'm getting is as much, if not more, as what I'm giving. I also do, exercise is my addiction. And I believe that helps my mental health. I also believe in therapy, which is something I started recently. I haven't said that publicly before, but I think something I wish I'd done, 20, 30 years earlier. I think it's healthy. I think everyone needs it. And I definitely think that people coming home from incarceration have a lot of trauma. Sometimes it's early childhood trauma, abuse and so on, neglect, other things. Sometimes it's the act or the situation that led them to be in prison. Many times, if not most of the time, it's what happens in prison, which I don't think people in society even want to think about, how just horrific it is. How the fact that you get a family visit and the next thing you're doing is getting strip search, which in my mind is sexual assault. By officers, by the law. What the fuck is up with that? Like the most beautiful thing is to get visit from family, and then you got to go through this dehumanizing thing. There's so much that we could talk about prison conditions. You guys know this, and it's uncomfortable even to talk about it. But I do want to say that for people coming home from that, there's a lot to process. And then the reentry. A lot of people come home with these dreams that they think, unfortunately, are just going to materialize like that. But the world is cruel. It's cold. It's fast. And a lot of people struggle to keep up with what their expectations were. So I think that mental health is something that we all need to do more of and focus on. But I think especially for the reentering community, I think there needs to be a lot more support and dedication to that issue. I'm glad that you've been able to work on it and take the time because what you've done is extraordinary. But it takes a toll. And you've been through the personal stuff. I'm so sorry, with your dad and your sister.
Thank you.
Is horrible for anyone. But, I think mental health and support is much, much needed.
Thank you. David, what about you? What are you doing to take care of yourself?
You know, I was going to say a lot of what Mark was saying is true for me as well. I get back just as much from the individuals. I like to say I have the same hustle as before, just a different product, which is hope and
Yeah.
you know, success.
Yeah.
And you know, it brings me joy to be able to go on the inside and individuals see me as somebody who was literally sitting in their seats, you know, 3.5 years ago, and to see how far I've come, and I've become self-sustaining and a productive citizen. And for me, that's
your therapy.
That's my therapy.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
my therapy.
JJ, what about you?
Well, David just took the words out of my mouth because my work is my therapy, right? You know,
And not to mention you got a beautiful fiance.
oh, I definitely do. I
Yeah,
was
you
gonna
be
definitely
boo-loving a lot.
mention her as well. But the reality is that, like, when I was in prison, I felt helpless, right? Like, I was innocent, I was in prison, and I didn't know how to get out. I had to learn the law. I had to learn the language that they use to contain me and confine me to get out, right? But beyond that, like, I had to learn a lot about myself and about humanity. And I kind of learned inside, and I don't think it's the healthiest, you know, philosophy, but I kind of learned that I was my own best company, and I kind of, like, just digged into myself. And it helped me understand myself and my relationship with others. And so then I was able to start getting those relationships together and start looking at them differently. And so the thing I found most powerful while I was incarcerated is the fact that when I couldn't help myself and I poured myself into others and was able to help others, the benefit of that, there was a mutual benefit there that they felt good because I helped them, and I felt good because I could help them, knowing I couldn't help myself. And then what I saw was the most beautiful thing in the world, when the universe conspires to give back to you, right? That spirit of gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I started becoming grateful for my conditions, despite how terrible they were,
Yeah.
I also became grateful for the people, because the conditions allowed me to see people differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that once I started to see those people come into my life and how they came into my life, which was authentic, I decided that I'm going to give myself to the world.
Yeah.
And so when I came home, Marc gave me that opportunity to go back inside and to continue to give yourself to the people you left behind. And I think that that was the most meaningful opportunity that I've been given since I've come home.
I think I would probably push back on that a little bit, knowing Marc and knowing you as well. I don't think Marc gave you an opportunity. I think that you created that opportunity for yourself.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can I say something on
Yeah,
that?
of
Because I
course.
gave you your props, Lewis, and I
Yeah.
did to David earlier.
Yeah.
I got to say a few words about my man
Yeah.
JJ, because you
Because
know
he's too modest to talk about himself.
I've been trying to avoid it.
there's so much to talk about. We don't have enough time, but I
Yeah.
got to say, you know, I met JJ. He was wearing green, all green, and was incarcerated. Was in the depth at this point into the third decade of a wrongful conviction, a crime that took place that he had absolutely nothing to do with, that everybody in law enforcement, from police to prosecutors, knew he had nothing to do with, but didn't give a shit and kept him buried, and he could have spent the rest of his life buried alive.
Yeah.
So I want to just understand the depth of what he was going through in that situation.
Yeah.
Yet despite that, I met a man who was a leader, who had the respect of everybody in the room, whether it was the superintendent, Michael Capra, who looked up to JJ, despite him wearing green, despite Capra being law enforcement, being the head honcho in that prison. JJ was like the mayor. And the way in which they interacted and the respect Capra had for JJ was something that was just extraordinary.
Yeah.
But the way the other men looked up to JJ, the command that he had, and it was not authoritarianism. It's not like he was walking around with a baton or a mace or
making
anything.
people walk the plank.
You know,
Yeah.
it was through his character.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so I saw that, I recognized that. And while I always want to say that there are 2 million people in this country who have talents and skills and are amazing, what I saw in this man was on a level that barely exists. And he's extraordinary. I have so much admiration, respect, love for him. And so to see him finally on the outside, it should have happened. It should never have gone there. But even it was over a decade since he was proven innocent to the world on Dateline. It's just insane. But to finally see him home and now living his life purpose, and to be with him and to be a part of his journey and this new chapter, and that the personal side of his life is developing in such a beautiful way as well, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy, and it's just an honor
That's
to be
awesome.
part of this journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, there is a scripture where when people found out that there was this cat who's by the name of Jesus who had popped up on the scene and he was doing this tremendous work, the word started floating around and people said, hey, you got to come see this guy. And somebody responded and said, is there anything good that can come out of Nazareth? And the response to that person was, come and see. And so when you think about the good that could potentially come out of the Nazareses of prisons, my invitation to everyone who's watching this broadcast is simply come and see. Come and see what we're doing at the Douglas Project. My grandmama used to say, I believe in grace. Grace lives in this house. That was part of my daily affirmation when I was in the morning. I believe in grace. Grace lives in this house. I am grace. I walk by grace. Grace follows me. And I envelope grace. When you see what we're doing at the Douglas Project, it's grace personified. My brother David, JJ, Mark, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being in the struggle for freedom, and I also appreciate you being in the fight for love on behalf of those whose voices are currently muted right now due to prison sentences. Until next time, I'm your man, Louis L. Reed. This is a special edition of National Reentry Week, and April being Reentry Month of the Douglas Project. Until next time, peace. Y'all say peace.
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 We got to work on Mark's peace. All right.